I couldn't carry him for the first 2 months after he was delivered. So it was a very rough patch. And I felt acute separation anxiety. I felt like, a part of me had just been taken away. It was really hard to be able to only visit him twice a week in the NICU. My mom's gone through a very hard life and she's been through all kinds of upheavals, but she's always been somebody who has been so alive, so graceful, so kind, so generous, so empathetic. If you can't be good and decent and kind and like loving with each other and happy, then you have no business being together for the sake of a child, because you're just destroying your child's life. At least that's what I feel. So for the longest time, Samaira had my name saved on her phone as not yet the evil stepmother.
I love that. She's quite witty. I've met her. She's damn funny.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is fun. So, so I've not yet qualified as a
not there yet.
stepmother, not there yet.
Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, I'm Rudrani. Welcome to Speak Easy. My guest today is such a special woman. Besides the fact that I truly think she's a very dear person, a very dear friend of mine, but she's extremely talented, one of the most empathetic people that I know in the industry or otherwise. I'm talking about, of course, the beautiful Mirza. It is true.
So much love. I love you.
I love you. Besides that, this is going to be such a special conversation. This is a Mother's Day special. I don't think that she had to wait to be a mother, because there's no one who is more motherly than Diya. To me, you'll see her fixing someone's hair, mine experience, to others. And I feel I've always seen that in you, and I think that it's so warm. There's this warm, special feeling. I'm sure this is not the first time someone's told you that.
Yeah. I've heard it my whole life. So it's very interesting you say this, because when I was a child, I was extremely maternal, even as a kid. So if you see my childhood pictures with my friends, you will see me kind of taking care of them. And my mom always said that I've always been very maternal. And of course, I very consciously wanted to be a mother. Right from my early 20s, I was very clear that before I'm 30, I want to have my child. There were so many like milestones about life that we all kind of plan and prepare for. And motherhood was a milestone that I definitely wanted for myself. And I've always been teased on set also while I've been working, when I work with my co-actors. Zayed used to call me Avyaan. All of my co-actors have always said that I'm maternal and I'm warm and I'm always kind of taking care of them. But I've just always been like that. I don't know how to be any other way. There's no set rule that every woman has to feel that way.
Exactly.
But I have always felt it, and felt it very strongly. So when I finally did become a mother and carried my own child, it was the most beautiful feeling ever.
Because you brought that up, I want to know, how was that feeling, and what was that moment for you?
I had prayed and waited for my son to come to me I wanted a child, son or daughter was irrespective, but I've waited for Avyaan my whole life. So when I finally discovered I was pregnant, I was just overjoyed. It was the happiest moments of my life, and I can't even begin to tell you what it feels like to feel that first movement inside your body, to feel that first kick, to feel that a being inside you. It was just magical. And when I held him, of course, in my case, I didn't get to carry him for all of the 9 months. He was born extremely premature. He was born in his 6th month. Yeah, that was the first thing I thought to myself. I was like, my God, I wish I had, I could have carried him longer. But after he was born, even then, because he was so small, there was a whole COVID situation going on and he was in NICU. I couldn't carry him for the first 2 months after he was delivered. So it was a very rough patch. And I felt acute separation anxiety. I felt like, a part of me had just been taken away. It was really hard to be able to only visit him twice a week in the NICU, not hold him. I really think that those were possibly the hardest moments of my life. But we will more than make up for it over a lifetime together. I enjoy him so much now. But Rudrani, you have a cellular shift. It's almost like the way you perceive the world, the way you feel, the way you respond to everything changes completely. I've always been empathetic, but what my child has done for me is that he's, of course, deepened my levels of empathy, but he's also made me very present in the now.
I think you know that he was born to a warrior because he fought.
Yeah, no, but he's a warrior.
That's what I'm saying.
His
a warrior son.
Yeah, I suppose
Give
so.
it a little bit.
I must acknowledge my own strength. I think it's so important to say thank you to yourself for braving through a very, very difficult and a very challenging time for everyone. I can't even begin to imagine what my husband went through and what my mother went through. It was a hard time for everybody. But Avyaan has taught me that, children come with a very strong life force. And he is a fighter. He really is. And he's filled with grace. He's a beautiful boy. You just met him.
Yeah, I met Avyaan. I want to say the most adorable person. Has a very you energy.
Yeah?
What mothers go through, sometimes with absolutely relentless pursuit of taking care of the child, sleepless nights completely, and you're never putting yourself in the front of the child. Was that? Did you go through that like every mother? Because I feel like it's so important to talk about that as well.
No, absolutely. I have gone through it and I continue to go through it. He's a toddler and he's been through, hospitalizations and surgeries, and there's been all kinds of upheavals, and at the same time one has to carry forward your own individual purpose and your own individual work and continue to be present as a mother now to our 14-year-old daughter, and continue to run a home and continue to show up to work and do what one needs to do. It's hard. I read a very beautiful poem the other day that I shared with my mother-in-law, and she really resonated with it. But I think as a mother, you never get time out. Even if you're physically away from your children, your mind and your heart is always with them, and you're always thinking about their next meal, their next play, their next, there's something or the other. And it's hard work. It's a lot of work. And I think it really helps when you have a strong support system, because women, and especially mothers, need it. Because we are the primary caregivers, naturally we need to be, because there are so many things that the mother can do which the father can, but the mother would prefer doing it herself.
Correct. Yeah, of course.
It just is the way it is. At least in my case. I mean, I would rather feed Avyaan, I would rather bathe him myself. I would rather do many of the things that I do with great joy. Not taking away from the fact that Vaibhav is happy changing diapers and doing what needs to be done. But there are many things that I'd rather do myself. And that does put tremendous pressure on a mother. Yeah. And it's important to have that support system, and important to have that time out.
How many hours were you sleeping at the time in the initial period? Now also I'm sure, 100%.
It's broken sleep. So in the beginning you don't sleep at all, because you are like, is he breathing? Is he okay? It's another level of attention. And then every 2 hours, your baby is waking up for a feed and then a nappy change or whatever, depending on what the circumstances are and the situation is. But in my case, I was up through the night in the beginning, and then quickly I learned that while my baby was sleeping, I had to sleep. So I would manage to squeeze in about 6 hours a night if I could, yeah.
But now also, of course, right?
Now I make sure I get 7 hours sleep.
How did you take care of your mental health when it was absolutely everything was breaking around me? I mean, of course, you have to do that, right? And it's exhausting when you're like completely like, I don't have.
So, a couple of things. One, I think it really helps to be able to communicate openly with family. I was very lucky that I didn't go through postpartum or any such. I think just the shock of having delivered as early as I did and having to very quickly deal with the circumstances that unfolded soon after. I didn't have the privilege of feeling anything for myself other than being responsible, attentive, and there. I sometimes still think that there are days when my body is just telling me to slow down, take it easy, get more rest, because there's so much that I went through physically that I haven't really fully addressed yet. And I give myself that time out if I need it. I've started pacing work out according to how my body feels. So if I can't do it, I'm very forthright and I say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I've been very lucky because one of the first films that I shot right after Avyaan's birth was when he was 6 months old. I went to shoot Bheed. And Anubhav Sinha and Banaras Media Works was so accommodative and fantastic. I would come back to Avyaan every few days. And if I felt like, because he was only 6 months old, I could go away for those days that I did. If he was older, like now he's older, I can't go away for that long anymore because he feels and the absence and he demands my presence, which is great because this is the phase that you don't want to miss at all. I'm talking about people with privilege. I mean, if you have the ability to say no because you have the income and you're financially stable, then yes. But for those who are not, I know it can be much harder. So I fully recognize the privilege there. But what also really helps is counseling, because there are certain things, like I remember, because of the trauma or the shock of just him going through surgeries so early in his life, and the fears that come with those moments, I used to get like these really scary flashes and it used to scare me. And I started seeking counseling for that and helped devise a mechanism with counseling to deal with it, and it really helped me. And I think it's so important, not just as a mother, but just as a person, to be able to, say that I'm not feeling okay, I'm feeling anxious easily, I need to address this. Because and I've recently discovered anxiety is something that most people just live with and they don't address it at all.
Yeah.
But Neha, my friend, our friend Dhupia, always tells me, because she saw me very closely during that whole phase, and she used to say, "Ye tere saalon ke meditation ka kamal hai, that you've not like flipped out and gone crazy."
That is true.
Yeah.
You are quite centered than the others because you've worked at it for like a long time.
Yeah, but I feel life is like that. It prepares you.
When you were talking about your 14-year-old daughter, our society has never looked upon as someone, when you get remarried to somebody, as normal. Now of course we are. But there has been such a smooth, easy transition about that. And I have seen you with her. You treat her like an adult, and I love that.
I treat her as an individual, which she is.
Exactly.
Of course, I think it's so important for a child to be loved and protected and cared for, but it's also so important for a child to be respected as an individual.
Thank you.
And I do that with Samaira because my parents did that with me, and that's how we will raise Avyaan. I hate the term stepdaughter.
Oh my God, yes.
Right? Because I never referred to my father as stepfather. I had a stepfather, but I never referred to him as a stepfather. But I guess just to, I don't know, people tend to use that term or phrase to qualify what they're saying or help people know the difference or distinguish. But that's the whole thing. There is no difference. A child is a child. I inherited one child from my marriage, and I had one with my, with my husband. And it was the same even with my father. one was a biological father and one was not.
Yeah, it was, and that's what I'm saying. It's true also because the mainstream media and films and all have often looked upon as only stepmothers as this evil people, which of course
I
they
have to
may have
share a
been.
joke with you
Please.
because you're talking about evil.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, Samaira had my name saved on her phone as not yet the evil stepmother.
I love that. She's quite witty. I've met her. She's damn
Yeah,
funny.
I was like, okay, this is fun. So, yeah, so I've not yet qualified as a
Yeah, not
evil
there yet.
stepmother, not there yet.
It's very difficult to imagine Dia in a Cruella costume, even for Halloween.
But that's the thing, right? My mother never let me read all these books. So I never grew up with the concept of wicked stepmother and all of
Cinderella
that.
and the
No. So I think that's actually one of the it's a disservice that stories have done and fairy tales have done to society, and I guess it comes from that whole patriarchal or maybe even Victorian social construct of what is I think it's so important for this generation especially that is growing up in our world where we're trying to help them understand that love is love and that there should be equality and that there should be respect for all people. So if you want to raise good people who learn to respect everybody, you also then have to raise people who understand that okay, sometimes some relationships don't work and some others do, and in that process you only stand to gain.
Yeah.
Like I remember being I was probably growing up in a time, and it happened with me at a time when it was not as common as it is unfortunately today, but I had two sets of parents at one time, and it never made me uncomfortable. And that's how it should be. It should never make a child uncomfortable. But it's up to how you communicate with your kid and how your kid understands what is happening.
I absolutely love that you brought it up. And because you said about that, how the stepdaughter, stepmother thing annoys you, another term that annoys me is broken family.
Ah.
But I think the world around you often kind of looks at you like, oh, from a broken family. And I feel that is more bothersome. This term I feel is more detrimental to someone who's trying to kind of come out of it or is going through it. And we were okay, right? Both parents, I feel like they were happier individuals. And you've been through that.
I feel like life anyway is a series of heartbreaks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like there are all kinds of situations that unfold in our lives that don't play out the way we believe they should or hope they would. And our hearts get broken, and we're actually always in a process of repairing and healing.
Yeah, healing, exactly.
है ना? But so yes, I agree with you that the concept of coming from a broken home, just because two parents have decided to live separately or get divorced and start new lives is an unfortunate stigma or stigmatization for a child.
100%.
Because there is enough that a child already has to learn to cope with and navigate, then to have to deal with that additional stigma. But having been a child myself, and I know you'll resonate with what I'm saying, I think very early in my childhood, I understood that there was a good reason why my parents weren't together and that they were better off,
Absolutely.
living separately and with the partners that they had now chosen, because I saw mutual respect between them and a very warm friendship, and that helped. And that was actually a very big contributor in me understanding that two people may love each other but doesn't mean they have to live together, because living together is a totally different ballgame. And you are absolutely right about the fact that sometimes it's a lot more detrimental for two toxic people to be in a toxic relationship and exposing your child to that toxicity on a daily basis, and giving them completely distorted ideas of love and commitment and relationship, and then having to for them to spend the rest of their lives unlearning what they learned or inherited from this exposure. So sometimes it's better for two people to say, this is not right and it's not fair for a child. In fact, if there's any reason not to be together, is to then say, if you can't be good and decent and kind and like loving with each other and happy, then you have no business being together for the sake of a child, because you're just destroying your child's life. At least that's what I feel. And I'm pretty sure that any kid who's been through, like, a childhood where their parents have been hateful and horrible with each other would agree.
Yeah, and it's pretty traumatic. It continues, right?
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
more than anything else, it just gives the person the wrong idea of love.
yeah, I know that the woman who's sitting in front of me, who I've known for years, what an important role your mother has played in your life. You've always spoken so kindly of her, and I know that she's been like a best friend to you, and how much you love her.
Oh my God, my mother is everything. I am because she is. I too feel like sometimes that my umbilical cord was never cut. I'm
love
just like our souls are connected so deeply. My mom's gone through a very hard life and she's been through all kinds of upheavals, but she's always been somebody who has been so alive, so graceful, so kind, so generous, so empathetic, and so childlike through it all. And no matter what her circumstance, whether it's her physical health that is like, holding her back, even now she's got acute COPD, she gets so breathless, but my God, it doesn't stop her from doing anything, whether it's playing with her grandchildren or it's going out there and doing something for someone or just being alive and present and awake in every moment. And I think that so much of my own ability to persevere, to be a good person, to be kind, to be generous, to help people, all of that comes from my mom. I've grown up watching my mother, adopting injured animals, injured birds, healing them, setting them free. To see your parents fail, to see your parents struggle, to see your parents hurt is so important, because it helps you understand that they're human, they're fallible, and it's what makes them who they are, and that's life, and we all have to have and go through our struggles.
It is. There are a lot of concepts out there about dealing with teenagers, right?
Oh, yeah. You just have to go through your own process and discover what it is, and
Exactly.
hope that you'll come out alive on the other side or in one piece.
The reason I brought this up is I feel like a lot of mothers, mine particularly, because I'm not as nice as you are really.
No, I was a terror. in
You were
my
a terror
teens.
as well?
I was a terror in my teens, which is why I so get Samaira. When she's going through her teenage angst, I'm like, I totally get it.
Yeah?
And
So how do you-
I tell Vaibhav, I said, she doesn't do half the nonsense I've gotten up to. So you like relax. It will
Really?
all, yeah, because
It's exactly
Vaibhav was like this model child, saint.
Oh. It's difficult for them to understand all
Great
this
at
then.
academics, like diligent with schoolwork, very like polite, well behaved, is all of those things till this day. But even as a teenager, he didn't go through any of the teenage angst that most of us go through. I've so done like the worst stuff.
So then you are the calming factor there, clearly.
Yeah. I'm the bridge.
You're the bridge. That's the of course, talking about all the mothers in the industry with the actors that you are. I'm going to go there, right? Today when you see so many women saying that, we really don't care. We're going to do what we want to, and taking charge of what they want to, saying that we will not let, even if we are actors who have their public life on display, we will still make our choices. It's a better situation. But, you've seen both sides, I feel, right? You've been at a time also where you've been judged.
So there's, I think it's a combination of a few things. One, of course, is like just society's perception, but also the industry's attitude, but also the choices that women in the industry make.
Yeah.
So at a time where, say, I was in the movies when I started out, there were a lot of leading ladies who were like big stars, who stepped away from cinema, who kind of took a back seat when they got married and had children to focus on their families and their children, which is perfectly fine. That's a
their
choice,
choice,
that's
100%.
their own. But that impacted the general attitude. And I think it's
Perception.
attitude and perception. That the attitude therein lies that if you are a mother, then that's your primary role. And being ambitious is a bad thing. And so you should not not aspire to have a career
Yeah.
or not aspire to continue work or be in the pursuit of your own growth. Because once you're a mother, you're a mother.
Yeah.
So that your individual growth
That's
is,
it.
is
That's your
supposed to
identity.
end right there. But then there are great examples of yesteryear actresses like Sharbila Ji, who is actually the most prominent example that I can think of right now on the top of my head, who was, who had children, who had a flourishing career, who did everything.
Yeah.
So I think it was really the 80s and the 90s where a lot of actresses did this, and therefore that perception was born. But I feel like now, given that there are more and more leading ladies and actresses who have children, who are married, who have and also have flourishing careers, and who've not said that my identity doesn't end
There.
now or
Yeah.
doesn't have to pause while I'm in this process of nurturing and caring for my child. I can continue to do all of it. I asked my child this the other day. So I was leaving for work and I said, Mama's got to go for shooting. And Avyaan was like getting clingy and he's like, Mama, Mama, Mama. So I said, Baba, when Papa leaves for office, you never do this. Like Papa goes to office, Mama needs to go shooting sometimes. He had a moment there. It was very interesting to see that switch in his eye, and he looked at me. He's young now, he won't fully comprehend it, but it made him think, and he let me go. He let me go.
But I think it's a beautiful, it's a teaching moment and a moment,
Yeah.
Okay, some fun questions with the theme that we have. All right, Diya.
Yes.
Shall we go ahead?
Yes.
What is that one moment that you hate most during the entire phase of motherhood that you have to do? It can be a task. It can be about a moment that you're like, ye khatam ho jaye. Bas, it's a part of it.
Sometimes when they get fussy with the food,
Hai na?
yeah, that gets hard. Because you need, you know how important it is for the child to get that nourishment and that meal at that time. And if they're getting like really fussy about it and taking too long to eat, then that can be a little like, oh, please let this moment end.
It is true, it's a good one that you've picked. Okay.
Yeah.
Who have you drawn inspiration from? Of course, your mother, sure. But are there other mothers that you've seen around you that you
All the time. I'm constantly, I think mothers help mothers the most. And, just witnessing my friends who are mothers, Soha, there's Radhika, there's Neha, there's so many of the mothers who, in my, around me, in my peer group, who I learn so much from and I'm so inspired by.
If you had to be extremely truthful about being a mother, what's one statement that you'd like to make?
There is nothing more beautiful in this world
Yeah.
than motherhood. Nothing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think you're an amazing mother, but how do you perceive yourself?
I think we all want to be good mothers. Yeah, and that is the cross that we bear. But it's a healthy thing to want, to aspire for. I haven't made big mistakes yet, but if I do get to that point where I do slip up, I think it'll be important for me to be honest enough to apologize to my child and say, I'm sorry, I messed up. I think that is more important than being perfect.
Like all of us done in a teenager time, which was that one moment that you felt was quite embarrassing, but of course it can be a funny moment with your mother.
With my mother, my poor mother, what all I've put her through. So, I'll tell you. I went through this phase that I didn't want to go to school. Bus, I don't know, I was getting bullied in school about something, I don't know what it was, but I must have been 15. So in Hyderabad, we had a house which had multiple doors. So old house. So my bedroom had 1, 2, 3 doors. One door was connected to my parents' room, which was always locked. Another door was something that would lead directly into the passageway. And there was a third door that would open into a corridor which led to the bathroom and then to the living room.
Got it.
Picture form?
Yeah.
So I have gotten ready for school. I have exited. I've unlocked that corridor wala door. I've exited from this, said bye, everything. locked my door from outside कि मैं स्कूल जा रही हूँ, मेरा दरवाज़ा बंद है. I have gone out into the corridor. I have re-entered my bedroom. I've locked the door from inside and gone back to sleep.
What a smart
And my
kid.
mother has happened to go to school that day to pick me up. And she has discovered I am not in school. And then she's bumped into my class teacher and she's like, I've come to pick up Diya. So my teacher is like, Diya has not come to school today.
What a smart kid.
And my mother is like panicked. She's come home thinking the worst कि पता नहीं कहाँ चले गई, क्या कर रही है, कहाँ घूम रही है, क्या हो गया. क्योंकि उस ज़माने में there were no mobile phones, nothing. She's come back home and then finally after I got a few whacks, I had to confess to her and tell her what I had actually done. And she was like, you were at home the whole day. You were sleeping the whole day. And I was like, yeah.
I love how smart that prank was, though. Not a prank that you wanted to do.
Horrible.
But horrible.
I
but
hope Samaira is not watching this interview because
You're like, I have ideas.
No. Thankfully, her bedroom door has only one door.
Yeah, is that your idea? All your experiences have been obviously contributing to doing all of that. But on that note, I would like to ask you: have you decided who the good cop or the bad cop is? Because there's always one, or are you both?
Both of us are both.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. My son has come back home.
But on that note, of course, I'd like to end it, and I would like you to end it by this question. If from your filmography, there are a few films that when they eventually grow, for both of them, what would you like them to first watch when they can?
I'd like them to watch a few of my films for sure. I'd love for them to watch my first film because I think it's important for them to see how raw I was and to see my growth as an artist. I would love for them to watch Tehzeeb. It was a very important film in my life that really taught me a lot. And of course, I formed this beautiful relationship with Shabana Amma. I'd love for them to watch Tumsa Nahi Dekha, Lage Raho Munna Bhai, Parinita, Love Breakup Zindagi.
I love that.
Thappad, Bheed. I mean, I did Bheed for Samaira and Avyaan. Dhak
How
Dhak,
lovely. You
which
did,
is,
no?
Yeah, Dhak Dhak, which is coming now. And I really hope that going forward, whatever I do will be a film that they will watch. And I'll be like killing it in my 50s.
You'll be killing it. You've been
Like
killing it
through
for a
my
while.
40s and my 50s.
You're killing it. Thank you, Diya.
Thank you.
As always, it feels like home, truly, in our house.
Well, it is speakeasy.
It is
And there's no
speakeasy.
other way we can do it.
There's no other way. But thank you so much. I've learned, I'm sure a lot of people have, and I hope that we can sometimes be a little like you, a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more patient, a little bit more loving like Diya Mirza. And thank you so much. If you could all tell them a small little message on Mother's Day.
Thank you, Rudrani, for always being so gracious and bringing out the best in me. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. Every one of you who identifies as a mother, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much once again, Diya. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Thank you.